Welcome to the Xceptional Insights podcast. I'm Sean Wargo, and I'm joined by my colleague, Peter Hansen.
Hello.
Together, we make up the market intelligence team here at Avixa,
where it's our job to identify trends in the economy and understand how they affect our industry, the professional audiovisual industry.
Hello, everyone. This is Sean Wargo and Peter Hansen. We're here for another Xceptional Insights podcast, this time live from ISE, where we're going to talk a little bit about the highlights of the show, what we've seen, what we've learned, what we've heard, all the things that you consume at a great venue like this. Toss it over to Peter first, just to give us Peter, what have you seen? What stood out to you over this past week?
Well, I think you got to say, especially on the show floor, the first thing that stands out to you is just how big and vibrant the show we are at is. I mean, record show floor size, record attendance. We've been hearing all week about how just thrilled people are. You know, it's music to a show owner, kind of semi-operator's ears when you hear like, the booth was crazy. And then they add like, and not just, tire kickers, like good buyers, and like that's really exciting.
Yeah.
And for me, I think this will probably be a little bit of a theme today, is how that connects to the return of the experience economy. This is case in point for people being really fully comfortable getting back together, in the business side of that as well. It's not just, people are here, it's businesses are here. We've now had a couple ISEs after the peak COVID, and it's reinforced and setting new records, right? And that's something that we see in IOTA's numbers, right? And it's beautiful to see it like with our own two eyes here.
Yeah.
What about you, Sean? What's standing out to you? What do you think about that?
I agree 100%. I mean, it's last year was a little more challenging show for me, given my condition at that time, but just coming and actually being a part of the show, the energy is just great. The conversations have been amazing, like learning just about hearing that boots on the ground kind of perspective from integrator, from manufacturer, all that sort of stuff. We just learned so much from those conversations. And I agree with you, it's definitely reinforcing a lot of what we had been talking about over previous podcasts. Certainly 2023 was a challenging year. Perhaps that even adds more weight to the fact that people are so excited about the future. 24, they're here, even if there were challenges of the past, whether it's supply chain or hiring talent or pipeline, sales, whatever it is. So all that's been great. I think the thing that I came into the show really wanting to learn a lot about was AI. And so I spent a lot of my time on the show floor looking for it. Was it visible in booths? Are they talking about it? What are people saying? What I noticed is that it's more of an undercurrent than an overt kind of presence here. Not a lot of actual mention on signage of AI, but when you have conversations, that's when you sort of hear it being talked about. Whether it's feature sets that they're not quite ready to say this is prime time, but here's some capabilities. Whether it's also toolkits that integrators are using to help them with programming efforts or design. Those kinds of things are under the surface, as well kind of conversations about future possibility, like during our global partner program meetings, as featured speakers kind of saying what's possible with the tech. So that's been interesting. I expected, I think, having heard about what happened at CES in the US, that we'd see a bit more overtness, but it really is a pragmatic industry. They kind of hold it close. They talk about it a little bit, yeah.
Well, it's also a contrast to CES, not just in pragmatism, but at CES, it's just so typical to see a technology. And it's like, well, this is a prototype. We're going to have a commercial one in like a year or two.
Yeah.
At some stupid price. Versus here, where it's like, you should be able to buy stuff. Like consumers expect to be able to buy anything they see in the booth. They expect to be like, get the spec sheet. So maybe AI isn't quite there yet because it's not like shipping in the sign exactly yet, but it's assisting. And it's, I would say as well, something we know in our industry is there's, and this is true of everywhere, is there's two kinds of AI. There's specific AI AI-empowered microphone or an AI monitoring system. And then there's general AI, where it's like generative AI. It's thinking, it's not designed for a certain task. It's not like, oh, you wouldn't use the word smart as a substitute for it. Maybe like AI microphone, smart microphone. Maybe 2 years ago you would have said smartphone microphone. Right. Today you'd say AI microphone. It's like the true AI, where it's like it can do a lot of things. That's really difficult to handle. That's newer. And so it's maybe more the subject of conversation, where it's like, when you're talking to them, it's like, this is the direction we're going, we're implementing it. If you buy it now with your software updates in 2-3 years, it's gonna be really cool. But it's maybe not to the level where in an industry and at a show where you expect to be able to say, I want that for my venue in a month. Well, maybe we're not quite ready to ship that. Anyways,
I think you wrote about this too in the AI report for Meta. Is this notion that, I think you just said it again, is algorithms that help with a task, like sound optimization, microphone optimization, those sorts of things. We didn't know we necessarily had to call it AI in the past, but it is early examples of use of algorithm to essentially accomplish a task. And so I think you're right. I think there's some examples here that the signage may not necessarily reflect AI as kind of the branding for it, but at its core, essentially that's what we're talking about.
Right.
Also, I think the use of generative AI as tool set is certainly something that doesn't have to show up in a booth, because that's sort of business, a business tool. It's like something your staff can use to augment, enhance, make their job more efficient. So had some conversations with integrators who were talking about the use of that for programming, like teeing up some programming. We know it's being used for content, for visual, images, video, that sort of stuff, to feed digital signage to some degree. So I think it makes sense given our industry and kind of where we are. It's like we didn't have to call it out as that as much. It was just sort of part of smart technology, optimization technology, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. Other themes that you're hearing about or seeing at the show?
I'll say one thing that has surprised me is the activity, kind of the 4-day activity here at the show. Okay, we're just starting day 4, but maybe it's not, surprise is too strong a word, but we knew coming in, registration numbers, individuals were high. We knew coming in, square meters numbers was high. Sort of like, let's say, concern for me, more naively, more pure data guy, not show operator type person, was, does that just mean that every booth gets the same number of attendee as last year because they spread out over more space? And the answer seems to be no. Like, it's what happens when you have this growth of people and square meters is the people are just doing more. What's been a surprise to you? What's the biggest surprise at ISE for you?
Well, I'd say a delightful confirmation is probably one good way to frame it. Is we saw in our research that audio was a particularly hard hit category during the pandemic. Anything related to live events, we saw 60-70% declines in their revenue in 21. 22 was better, 23 a little better. But what we're seeing meaningfully as you walk around a show floor now is technologies suited for live events, which really highlights to me that finally that part of the industry really is back. They're ready to exhibit. The attendees are coming back. That's great to see. I think it goes along the lines of what you're talking about for experience economy. These are parts of our industry, parts of the economy that are benefiting from return to in-person. Venues and entertainment is up. People are traveling, they're going out, they're going to concerts.
Right.
So that part of the market is naturally resuming as a result.
It's connected to IOTA. Solution areas, number 1 in terms of growth, live events. That's that temporary install. 5-year growth through 2028, that's the leader. And just close behind, it's, we're not just talking about it as like a buzzword because we're excited because we're here. We're excited because we're here and we're seeing it, but it's also in all of the categories, solution area in IOTA, you see that clear trend and let's say skew in growth towards experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Other things would be, I would say less conversation as we would sort of expect around conferencing collaboration, though still there.
Yeah.
I think the theme of the day would be more, say, concerns about deflation, commoditization, that sort of stuff. Counterpoint perhaps being a rise. I've been surprised, actually. That would be one place I'd put the word surprise, is energy around managed services. Surprise only because we know it's something that's going to be growing quickly, but to hear it confirmed by integrators who are saying, yes, I'm actually now kind of seeing this as part of my business, that's a surprise because it is still such a small percent of the total, right? So it's really good to hear that as perhaps we face commoditization risks, customers are looking for, demanding more of managed services offerings to kind of keep them operational, make sure there's no downtime, plan for obsolescence, replacement, all that sort of stuff. Maybe linked to AI to some degree as a tool set that helps roll that out.
Yeah.
But that I think that's been a good confirmation and a pleasant discovery in our conversation.
What about tech? Like, what has stood out to you? I don't know, the surprise tech, the impressive tech.
Yeah.
The one piece that just comes to mind when I say technology here at the show.
Yeah, well, one of the cool, crazy things was certainly some really creative speaker designs. There's a company showing some conceptual models, a brand called Pequod. That was kind of interesting to see, and along those lines of experiential, that there's an artistic aspect to AV. It's the part I love because it's where the true custom opportunity exists. It's the notion of true experience is how they creatively use technology, yes, to augment and enhance, but the technology itself can also be part of the experience in a visible and artistic way. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the big flashy, there's a ton of direct view LED, a lot of manufacturers, a lot of smaller vendor manufacturer suppliers here. And so you would expect that a little bit given the buzz and where we are in that transition of technology from flat panel LCD over to direct view LED. Whether all of those will be brands that you will see at an integrator or through distribution, not necessarily the important part, is just the option, the choice in the market as we see. So digital signage has been an area we note that was a little softer in 2023, but good life here, kind of hearkening to possibility for the future. Yeah.
And for me, my tech one is a digital signage example. Before I mention it, I also want to say it in terms of audio. Wasn't thinking audio when I said that, but you talking about these speaker waves, one thing that always surprises and stands out to me is kind of like the beamforming stuff where you're like walking through the audio hall and you walk by and all of a sudden you're like kind of blown to the side a little bit by some like noise, and then it's 2 steps and it's quiet, and you can just see, man, those engineers are smart. Like, that's really cool what they can create in terms of controlling sound and space. That's really neat. For me, the big tech thing is actually not on the show floor, and it's not even sponsored. It's at the main entrance to ISE. There is this beautiful transparent LED signage, and it's like super bright. As you're walking in, it's like, wow, it's cool content, it's exciting. I'm like, hell yeah, we're here.
DJ's pumping, the audio's there.
Second you get inside and you look back, you forget that it's there because it's this transparent, and it's so transparent that it's like, you just look right out through it. I was leaving and I was like, wait a second, wasn't there screens here? And I did a double, triple take. Seeing that, it like takes that to that next level, because you can see transparent LED on the show, but it's like, that is just something that was bought. We were like wondering, like, is that a sponsored product? There's no sponsor. It's not sponsored. They just threw down a bunch of cash because events are back. Spending on Privy, it's not just like people are here. It's translating into spending for our industry. High-end products, big, and it's there, and it's super cool. Like, that was eye-popping, and I took a little video of it. I saw other people taking videos of it, and from both sides. You like take it from the outside, look at that beautiful screen, you walk through the doors, you take it from inside, and you're like just looking outside onto the streets of Barcelona.
Yeah.
That for me, that was my tech.
It's a great example of the technology you see on the show floor. Samsung, other brands have great transparent direct view LED concepts.
LG had a really impressive one at Infocom.
Yeah, those booths, they get a lot of traffic as a result. In fact, it's sort of bottlenecks on the show floor as people are trying to walk by slowly and take it all in. But it's a great example of the components on the show floor are the paints on the artist's palette that then end up outside enhancing the whole experience. They had a great projection map experience down at Casa Batlló with the Gaudi house. Great artistic expression using painting with light to amplify, highlight various parts of the facade. Just another great example of how the space meets tech to create and content to create that kind of just cool, exceptional experience. So it isn't just what's here on the show floor, it's how it all comes together to create the exceptional experiences, for sure. Yeah. Other than that, let's see, I'm trying to think of any other technologies that jump out at you. I will say there has been a lot of energy. We've seen in our research, a huge chunk of our market is content management hardware, right? So the back-end systems. So you walk the show floor now, and you're seeing even more and more evidence of that kind of playing out. Switchers, routers, general purpose PC, AV server, media players for digital signage. That there's definitely a lot more I'm noticing of that kind of component infrastructure on the show floor as well.
And to me, it's come through a little bit in conversation, but just more IT players, IT integrators, IT buyers,
Brands.
brands.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not the most clear thing on the show floor, just if you're purely using your eyes, because the stuff that's going to catch them is not the IT back
The little white black box,
And in fairness, like, they know that, so they're not overly displaying. It's not a lot of show floor. You don't need a lot of show floor for a spec sheet. You know, you just you don't need to draw the organic. I caught someone's eye. They don't know my brand, but I did something beautiful, or I did something really impressive with sound. So that's a very different business model, sales model, especially at the ultimate in eye catching and ear catching, like we have at ISE, Infocom, the big Pro AV shows. So that has been something that I've picked up in those conversations on the show floor. With people you bump into, other folks at Avixa, those networking events.
Yeah, I agree with you, and especially as you look at the conference tracks, essentially, what are the themes of the various sessions that exist here at the show floor? Some very IT-sounding ones, so clearly AI, we already covered a part of the conversation that leans more IT and its kind of skill and tool set, but also cybersecurity, big topic of conversation. I participated in the Control Room Summit. The first half of the day was all about cybersecurity, and essentially the wake-up call that the industry is going through of that, this is not something we can ignore or pretend that is covered by someone else. We as an industry, as vital parts of network, as potential intrusion points into a system, is something we have to pay attention to, especially given that regulations are changing. We have NSI-2 coming in October here in Europe. That is a lot more strict about breach and who's liable in breach. And so I think along the themes of IT, some of the normal IT topics that have been popular within that market, you're hearing talked about even more here as well. Beyond just networking, which has been a long-term theme, AV over IP, use of IP networks, a part of that is ensuring security of data. So I've noticed that as a key theme in conference track as well, as something we have to pay more attention to.
Yeah. Well, why don't we maybe conclude with a non-Pro AV thing? We're at Barcelona. It's been a fun show. What is just pure highlight being here? City.
Yeah.
People. What's top for you?
Yeah, I love Barcelona in general. The food is amazing, so some really good meals out. You and I had the pleasure of going to a dinner down in Las Ramblas, the more tourist area, but some great meal. Every meal, pretty much without fail, has been just amazing.
Right.
Great wine, low price for food, which is something coming from the States we appreciate.
Yeah.
A little less time to get out and see the tourist sites, but highlight for me certainly being able to do some of our events in the Gaudi properties, just seeing again the just genius that represents, the artistic aspect.
Right, early immersive experience.
That's exactly. Use of space in just amazing ways, and use of technology for that time in very creative ways, and now augmented, enhanced with the new technology. But a highlight for you, any places?
Yeah, my finger has to point right at the food. I think, you want to talk about like experience, creativity. You and I were US based, and we got great food in our area. But one of the critiques I would say is, if it's meat, it's chicken, beef, pork. If it's fish, it's salmon, maybe one or two whitefish, cod, right? Yeah. Tuna, exactly. And then like the standard shellfish. But here it's like anything. And even if it is beef, it's like a different cut, right? And it's like, I know there's a million fish, right? Like, I know enough about nature to know there's a million kinds of fish I've never heard of. But you get on these menus and it's like, I need a translator for the English because I've never heard of like what is turbot like fish, and I try it and they're doing great things with it.
Oh yeah.
The seasonings, everything. That's a highlight. And
produce too.
And you know me, like I don't miss the dessert menu, and they're always doing fun things. It's not just like here's a overly sweet chocolate cake. It's just like last night it was champagne lemon with like a little crumble on top thing, and it's just the right amount of sweet, just the right amount of sour, just the right amount of like fizz and verve from the champagne. It's just like, there are some chefs in this city doing some very wonderful things. So
100%
like
agree.
when I leave the show floor, that's where my mind goes, and that's always a highlight for me when in this new city where we are for 3 years and hitting our stride. That's my highlight.
So as you can hear, ISE, a great food source for food for stomach, for brain, for inspiring us for the future. It's been an awesome week here at ISE. We certainly hope you've had a similar experience, those of you that were able to join us here. Otherwise, that concludes our podcast for this time. Join us next time as we reflect a little bit more forward, perhaps, on 2024 and what we expect for the year. Thanks again. Safe travels. Be well.